What if I told you there's a forest in America where people don't just vanish, but something brings them back, twisted into something unrecognizable? That question haunted me the first time I heard it. And if you think it's just another urban legend, wait until you hear what happened to us in Blackwood Forest. The story begins in late October, right when the air turns sharp and the days shorten into an endless dusk. 4 of us had planned the trip: Mark, my older cousin and self-declared leader; Dana, my best friend who always had a sarcastic remark locked and loaded; Chris, who swore he'd become a professional photographer one day; and me, Eli, the one who now wishes we had never gone. We weren't chasing legends. At least, not at first. Blackwood Forest was rumored to be beautiful: acres of crimson and gold leaves, a forgotten fire tower, and trails that few hikers ever took. But the locals in Hollow Creek, the small town bordering the woods, never spoke of it without lowering their voices. The gas station cashier had muttered something as we bought snacks. "You kids camping in those woods? Don't stay past sundown. The forest doesn't like strangers." Mark had laughed it off. Perfect. Free creepy atmosphere. But Dana's grin faltered just slightly, and Chris caught it in a photo, her face lit by the flickering neon open sign, her eyes glancing nervously at the shadowed tree-line in the distance. We set up camp deep in the forest, far past the well-marked trails. The deeper we hiked, the quieter the woods became. Not just quiet, wrong. No birdsong, no rustling undergrowth. Just the crunch of our boots and the occasional nervous cough. By the time we lit a fire, the world outside the circle of flame was nothing but thick, suffocating blackness. Chris kept snapping photos, muttering about how something about this place just looks different. It wasn't until we started hearing it that things turned. A low whisper, threading between the trees, just faint enough that we weren't sure it was real. "Do you hear that?" Dana froze, her marshmallow slipping from the stick into the flames. Mark rolled his eyes. Probably the wind. But the trees weren't moving. No breeze. No rustling. Just a single voice, almost inside our ears. "Not alone." Chris snapped another picture, click, flash, and cursed. "Damn it, Eli. Did you see that?" I hadn't. But when we looked at the tiny camera screen, my stomach dropped. The photo showed our campfire, us huddled close, and behind us, a 5th figure. Pale. Thin. Standing just at the edge of the trees. Its face blurred, as if the camera lens couldn't, or shouldn't, capture it. We all whipped around, firelight burning our eyes, but nothing was there. Mark forced a laugh. "Okay, congratulations, Chris. Nice Photoshop prank." But Chris's hands shook as he held up the camera. "I swear. I didn't." That's when the whisper came again, louder this time, so close it was like someone had leaned over my shoulder. "You shouldn't have come." Dana screamed. She wasn't pointing at the trees, she was pointing at the photo still in Chris's hand. Because the figure in the background wasn't standing still anymore. In the next photo, taken seconds later, it was closer. Almost at the edge of our firelight. Chris dropped the camera, and the forest went silent again. Dead, suffocating silence. Mark forced us back into our tent, insisting we'd laugh about it in the morning. But none of us slept. All night, I swore I heard faint footsteps circling the tent, slow and deliberate. When dawn finally came, Chris grabbed his camera to show us the photos again. But every image after that first one was different now. The pale figure was gone. Instead, in every single shot, one of us was missing. And in the last photo, the one I didn't remember him taking at all. It was just me, standing alone in the forest, eyes black, mouth open in a scream. You ever wake up after a nightmare and wonder if you're still dreaming? That's how the morning in Blackwood felt. Chris swore he didn't take that last photo, the one of me, alone in the woods, screaming with eyes black like pits. His camera battery had nearly drained overnight, though none of us remembered him touching it. Dana wanted to pack up immediately, but Mark, ever stubborn, refused. Guys, think about it. This is perfect. We're in the middle of some creepy-ass Blair Witch scenario, and Chris has the evidence. Do you know how viral this could go? I wanted to argue, but the forest pressed in around us, suffocating, and my words shriveled in my throat. It was Dana who snapped back. Viral doesn't matter if we end up dead, Mark. But Mark had already started hiking toward the old fire tower he'd read about online. He promised it would give us a view of the whole forest, maybe even cell reception. Against better judgment, we followed. The trail grew narrower, the trees crowding so tightly overhead that daylight barely filtered through. It felt like walking through a cathedral of shadows. Every so often, Chris would raise his camera and snap another photo, though his hands shook each time. Don't, Dana muttered, grabbing his arm. What if it shows up again? Chris's voice was barely audible. What if it's already here? That stopped us cold. Because he was right. The feeling hadn't left since last night, the sensation of being watched. Not from far away, but from just beyond the treeline. By noon, we reached a clearing. The fire tower loomed above us, rusted, skeletal, its stairs sagging under decades of rot. A breeze whistled through the metal frame, the first real wind we'd felt since entering the forest. Mark's grin returned. See? Civilization. We'll climb up, get our bearings, and then decide what to do. Dana muttered, or we'll fall and break our necks. Still, we climbed. Each step groaned, echoing through the forest below. When we finally reached the top, the view stole my breath. Acres of forest stretched endlessly in every direction, an ocean of dark green and shadow. No towns. No roads. Just trees swallowing the horizon. Chris lifted his camera again. At least the shot's worth it, he whispered. The shutter clicked. He went pale. We crowded around. The photo showed the forest stretching beneath us, but not empty. In the picture, dozens of pale figures stood scattered through the trees, all facing the tower. All looking up. But when we looked down with our own eyes, the forest was empty. Dana cursed, yanking the camera away and shoving it into Chris's bag. No more. I don't care. Stop feeding it. Mark scoffed, though his voice wavered. It's just some glitch. A reflection, maybe. That's when the first scream tore through the woods. It wasn't human. High-pitched, warped, like metal dragged across stone. It rose and fell, carrying for miles, until the sound rattled the tower itself. We all froze. Then, below us, the undergrowth shifted. Leaves scattered. Branches snapped. Something was moving fast through the trees, circling the base of the tower. Chris fumbled for his camera again, but Dana slapped it from his hands. Stop. Don't you get it? Every time you take a picture, it gets closer. Mark shoved her. And what do you suggest, huh? Pretend it's not there? But Dana didn't answer, because the sound of footsteps echoed up the tower stairs. Slow. Deliberate. 1. 2. 3. We turned toward the staircase, hearts hammering. The steps creaked under a weight too heavy to be an animal. Hello? Mark called down, his bravado cracking. Who's there? No answer. Just another step. Then another. Chris scrambled for his camera in panic, ignoring Dana's scream, and snapped a photo toward the stairs. Flash. Click. The screen showed the stairwell below us, empty. But in the reflection of the rusted metal railing, distorted and warped, something was climbing. Something with arms too long, its pale face stretched into a grin too wide. The camera slipped from Chris's hands. We all backed away as the footsteps grew louder, closer, climbing toward us. And then, the sound stopped. Silence. We stared at the stairwell, waiting for it to appear. But instead, the sound of footsteps started again. This time, coming from above us. You know that impossible moment when your brain insists something can't be real, but your body reacts anyway? That's what it felt like when we heard the footsteps above us, on the roof of the fire tower. We had climbed as high as the tower went. There was nothing above except rusted steel beams and open sky. And yet, clear as day, something was pacing just overhead. The structure groaned under its weight. Slow, deliberate thuds, like it wanted us to hear. Like it wanted us to know we were trapped. Dana's breathing turned ragged. No, 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 that's impossible. Mark swallowed hard, for once at a loss for words. Then, as suddenly as it began, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Chris whispered, "Maybe it's gone." He dared to raise his camera toward the sky. Flash. Click. The image showed nothing at first glance. Just the skeletal beams of the tower against the gray sky. But then Dana gasped. Zoom in. And there it was. Perched on the beams above, crouched like a spider, the figure. Its limbs bent at angles that didn't belong to humans. Its face was pale, stretched, eyes black voids. And though its mouth wasn't moving in the picture, we swore we heard a whisper. "We see you." The camera died right then, screen flickering out. Panic surged through us. Mark, finally shaken, muttered, "We're leaving. Now." We half ran, half slid down the groaning stairs, every creak echoing like a countdown. None of us looked up. The air grew colder, thicker, until our breaths came out in sharp white clouds. When our boots hit the forest floor, the silence was unbearable. The woods seemed to hold its breath. "Which way?" Dana asked, voice trembling. Mark turned, spinning, his confidence shattering. Every direction looked the same, walls of trees pressing in. The path we had taken was gone. No trail. No markers. Just endless forest. "That's not possible," Chris whispered. We followed a trail. There was a trail. But there wasn't any more. We picked a direction anyway, shoving through brush, stumbling over roots. My chest burned. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, I half expected to see something pale and grinning right behind us. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt broken in Blackwood. And then, we saw the cabin. It shouldn't have been there. An old wooden structure squatting in a clearing, roof sagging, windows black with grime. It looked abandoned for decades, yet a faint curl of smoke rose from the crooked chimney. Dana shook her head violently. "No. No way. We are not going in there." Mark stared at the smoke, desperate. "Someone lives here. Maybe they can help." "No," Dana snapped. "Nothing about this place wants to help us." But the whisper came again, drifting through the trees, soft as breath against our ears. "Inside." Chris grabbed my arm. His skin was clammy, his voice hollow. "Eli, look." He pointed to the ground. There were footprints in the mud. Human ones. Fresh. Leading straight to the cabin door. Before we could argue, the door creaked open. Just a crack. We froze, staring into the darkness inside. "Hello?" Mark called, his voice breaking. Is someone there?" No answer. Just the faint sound of something shifting inside, too slow to be human. The door creaked wider, as if inviting us. And then, from deep inside the cabin, we heard it. The sound of a camera shutter. Click. Dana screamed. "We're leaving." She spun, but Chris didn't move. He was staring at the open door, eyes wide, lips trembling. That was my camera, he whispered. But the camera was still hanging dead around his neck. The door opened all the way. Inside, the darkness stretched deeper than the cabin should have allowed, like the hallway went on forever. And in the black, something moved. Pale fingers curled around the doorframe, dragging downward, too long, too sharp. The pale fingers gripped the cabin doorframe, splintering old wood as they dragged slowly downward. My stomach turned. Whatever it was, it wanted us to see it before it came out. Dana yanked my arm. We have to run. Now. But Chris shook his head violently. Don't you get it? It already knows where we are. Running won't matter. His voice was flat, drained, like he was repeating someone else's thought. The smoke from the chimney curled thicker, spilling into the clearing like fog. It smelled wrong, sweet and rotten, like meat left in the sun. Mark, ever the fool, stepped forward. Hello, he tried again. The whisper came from the cabin, low and clear this time. A woman's voice, but warped, like it echoed from deep underground. We've been waiting. The cabin door swung wide, revealing not a room, but a hallway. It stretched impossibly far back, lined with doors that should never fit in a structure that small. Chris lifted his dead camera as if to shield himself. That's not real. But Dana's voice cracked. It's showing us what it wants. Don't you see? It's not a cabin, it's a trap. The hallway seemed to breathe, walls pulsing as if the wood itself were alive. One of the doors at the far end creaked open. From it came the unmistakable sound of footsteps running toward us. We bolted. Branches whipped against my face as we plunged back into the woods. The smoke followed, creeping through the trees, curling around our legs. I swore I could hear the clicking of a camera shutter with every step we took. Click. 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 After what felt like forever, we stumbled into another clearing, and froze. It was our campsite. The same circle of stones. The same scorched logs where our fire had burned. Even the marshmallow stick Dana had dropped last night was still lying in the dirt. But the tent was already set up. Mark swore under his breath. We left this behind. We hiked hours away. Chris shook his head. We didn't leave it. We never left. Before we could argue, Dana gasped. The tent zipper was slowly moving down. From the inside. We backed away as the flap opened. And we saw ourselves. For shadows sat inside, their outlines unmistakable, Mark, Dana, Chris, and me. But they weren't us. Their skin was pale gray, their eyes bottomless pits of black, mouths curled into grotesque grins. They sat motionless, staring at us with hungry patience, like puppets waiting for strings to be pulled. Mark shouted, his voice trembling, "This is some sick trick." The shadows moved. At once. Perfectly synchronized. They stood, heads tilting, still grinning. Dana's voice broke. It's replacing us. The shadows stepped out of the tent. Their movements were jerky at first, like broken marionettes, but with each step, they grew smoother, more human. Too human. I couldn't breathe. It felt like staring at a reflection that wanted to step out of the mirror. Run, Dana whispered. We didn't need telling twice. We tore back into the trees, hearts pounding. The forest shifted around us, trails twisting, trees leaning, as if the woods themselves were forcing us deeper in. Finally, exhausted, we collapsed by a creek. The water was dark, sluggish. My throat was dry, but I didn't dare drink. Chris, pale and shaking, finally spoke. You don't get it. I think we died last night. Dana glared at him. Shut up. Don't say that. But Chris's hands were trembling. He lifted his camera again, though it hadn't worked in hours. Somehow, it flickered back to life. He pointed it at the creek, snapped a photo, flash, click. On the screen, the creek was gone. The photo showed 4 bodies floating face down in the water. Our clothes. Our hair. Us. Mark swore, stumbling back. That's not real. That's not. But when we looked up, the creek was empty. And yet, droplets of water clung to our shoes. The water dripping from our shoes felt colder than ice. My pulse pounded in my ears, drowning out everything except Chris's shaky breathing. Mark shouted, "It's a trick. It has to be." But even he didn't sound convinced. Dana was trembling, hugging herself. "We have to keep moving. We can't stay here." But Chris just stood there, staring at his dead camera like it was some kind of oracle. "It's not a trick," he muttered. "The forest is showing us the truth." I wanted to argue, but then I heard it again. Click. The sound of a camera shutter. Not from Chris this time, this came from the trees around us. One click, then another, echoing in the distance, closer and closer. The whispers followed. Overlapping, endless voices. "We see you. You never left. You're already ours." Panic drove us forward, stumbling blindly through the woods. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but the whispers chased us, circling, hurting. We burst into another clearing, and stopped dead. The fire tower. The same rusted structure we had climbed earlier, looming over us again. But this time, the trees around it were different. Wrong. Their trunks twisted upward like they were reaching, their bark split open to reveal something pale beneath, like bone. Dana's voice cracked. "We've been walking in circles. We can't leave. It won't let us." Mark clutched his hair, screaming. "No! There has to be a way out. There has to be." And then the tower creaked. We looked up. Perched at the very top were 4 figures. Silhouettes against the gray sky. They were us. Mark. Dana. Chris. Me. Standing still. Watching. Their outlines were distorted, faces too long, arms too thin. But the resemblance was undeniable. Chris whispered, "It's already replaced us." The shadows on the tower tilted their heads in perfect unison. And then, slowly, they began to climb down. We turned to run, but the forest was gone. Where there should have been trees, there was only darkness. A vast, endless void stretching in every direction. The clearing was an island, and the shadows were closing in. Dana clutched my arm, sobbing. "Eli, please, what do we do?" But I had no answer. My throat was tight, my chest hollow. I could only watch as our doubles stepped onto the ground, grins widening. Chris raised his camera in one last act of defiance. His hands shook, but he managed to snap a photo, flash, click. The screen flickered. This time, the photo didn't show the clearing. It showed a small, dusty gas station. A neon sign buzzing faintly. Inside, for kids buying snacks before heading into the woods. Us. Alive. I felt dizzy. That was yesterday. Before we ever set foot in Blackwood. Before the whispers. Dana gasped. "It's not just showing us. It's recording us." The shadows were almost on us now, their black eyes fixed, mouths stretched wide. Chris's camera flickered again, rapid fire. Click. 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 Images flashing. Our campsite, empty. The cabin, doors yawning open. Bodies in the creek, pale and bloated. Us, screaming. Blackwood Forest swallowing itself whole. And then the final image, a blank screen. The camera went dark forever. The shadows lunged. I don't remember what happened after. Just darkness swallowing everything. The feeling of being pulled inside out, like falling into the lens of a camera that never stops clicking. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in the gas station. Same buzzing neon sign. Same cashier staring at us. But it wasn't right. Dana, Mark, and Chris stood beside me, smiling too wide. Their eyes were too black. Their movements too smooth. And when I looked into the glass door of the refrigerator, I saw my reflection. Black eyes. Pale skin. A grin I couldn't control. The cashier muttered under his breath, voice trembling, "Another group." That's when it hit me. The story I thought I was telling, the one about 4 kids who went into Blackwood and never came back, wasn't mine to tell. Because we never left the forest. We're still there. And every time someone listens, every time someone dares to hear about the whispers in Blackwood, the forest finds a new way in. A new group to bring back.